Welcome, everybody, to Lunch with the League. I'm Pam Wickliffe, and we are going to have a really good program today. Before we start, though, I do have some things that I need to say at the beginning, and that is the League of Women Voters never support or oppose a political party or a candidate. We are nonpartisan. We present unbiased information about elections, the voting process, and issues. And after we study an issue, perhaps, we use our positions to advocate for or against particular policies in the public interest. Because of that, as being nonpartisan, comments and opinions of the folks who speak aren't necessarily those of the League. We will be here from noon to 1. And our general format is for the speaker to share for a half hour, and then we have a half hour of Q&A. So we will listen to Trisha speak until she's done speaking, and then we can ask all of our questions. And I asked her before, so all my questions are answered. Please remain muted during the talk, and with comments or questions, please put them in the chat. And then I'm going to read them to Trisha, and she can answer them from the chat when it's time. And of course, for more information, and I will mention this more than once, about the League of Women Voters and their positions, go to www.lwvsouthbend.org. We do have some news. We have a lot of news, and I'm going to be giving you abbreviated news because there's so much of it. On the 17th, from 5 o'clock to 7 o'clock, in the auditorium of the Community Learning Center at the main library in South Bend, there will be a celebration of National Voters Day. St. Joe County Public Library and the League of Women Voters of South Bend area have joined thousands of community partners across the country with a coordinated democracy drive to help community members register to vote and engage in the democratic process. This is, and there will be several speakers. I'm not going to go into the details of everything, but after the program, there will be a time of, I wrote it down and now I can't find it, an informal time for people to get together and talk after it's over with. This is the culmination of a week of visits for all the South Bend Library branches that our League of Women Voters volunteers have registered voters. Prior to now, we've been to 3 high schools. We've been to the YWCA and several other places, as well as, of course, our monthly naturalization that we go to. In the next week or two, we will be registering 4 more high schools or adult learning places, St. Margaret's House, St. Mary's College, and another naturalization at the federal court building. It's been a very busy time. And we've had a lot of help from a lot of people who have come and volunteered over and over and over. On October the 7th, from 5 to 7, please join us for a casual get-together with League members at the Unity Gardens. And there will be more information that comes out next week. Kathy, do you have anything more that you want to say about that? Okay. And Jerry puts out League of Women Voters updates, and so it will be in that. There are many political debates, forums, and gatherings that are coming up. Please go to the League of Women Voters South Bend .org or our Facebook League of Women Voters site, and you can find out so many more things than we can talk about today. The League of Women Voters news was sent out yesterday to all the members. And if you go to the League's website, press the red bar, you get so much information of all the stuff that's coming up in the near future about forums and debates and get-togethers concerning candidates. The word was gone. And if any of you wants to know more information about the candidates or the selection or anything else about where to go and where to vote, go to vote411.org. And it has a plethora of information as well. So that's the news that I know. Does anybody have anything more? Vote 411 is now published, all but one county level. Oops, it disappeared. Elizabeth said, all but one county level candidate responded. All but one school board, South Bend school board candidate responded, and more. So please check it out. It's important that we know what we're voting for. And given that, we have a speaker today, and her name is Trisha Carrico, and she is the St. Joe County Chief Deputy Clerk. Ms. Carrico is a recent graduate of the CEATS program, which is a certification in election administration, technology, and security from Ball State University. She has 6+ years of experience in St. Joe County voter registration and elections, municipal, county, state, and presidential, and 15 years as an experienced manager in the private business sector. She has overseen the 2023 merging of voter registration into the clerk's office with a goal of improved efficiency and accountability. And she is passionate about building high performance, customer-based teams of clerks with extensive knowledge of Indiana election code, voter registration requirements, and the Indiana election calendar. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to Trisha Carrico, and thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. This is a new experience for me to be the one to talk. Usually Amy's the one that does it. But she gave you a little background history, so I've kind of had my hands in a lot of the processes versus I started out in voter registration as a deputy clerk, so I registered people. And I did that for several years and then worked along with absentee in different aspects. And then came into this position last year at the beginning of the year. Amy asked me and I accepted. And it's been very interesting because she signed us up for the SEATS program, which she's also a graduate herself. And that was a long class. And we had to attend classes once a month in person. And then the rest of our homework was online. So we were working and then doing homework and writing papers. And that was a little different to be out of that for so long and then do this. And I'm like, well, okay. And it was, I actually encourage anybody who is in the county elections or anything like that to take the program, because it starts you the background history of elections. And then it takes you all the way to current day and how machines are certified and the processes that they go through. And granted, each state is different, and each county can be different because we all have different equipment. But it was a great learning process. And we had to put together a capstone project, and our project was Elections 101. And that was so that we could bring to the public how easy it is to get out and vote, because we feel like sometimes people can be very intimidated if they've never went out and voted. And so we held a couple sessions. Granted, one of them was on a Notre Dame home game weekend, so we didn't get a big turnout, but we worked on it pretty hard, and we have brochures, and we still have the ability to put a mock election, which we would like to get into the schools, like into some of the government classes, and show those students what the process is like and how very easy it can be to just get out and vote and have your voice heard. So that has been a wonderful experience that I will take with me. We had to present it in front of all the rest of the students and the Secretary of State. And then he gave us our certificates of completion along with a wonderful challenge coin. But a lot of these things, we actually, because of our Elections 101, we were recognized by the state as it was like an acknowledgement of our great effort. So someone else won with their capstone project, but to just have an honorable mention was very, very it tickled us, because we thought, oh, this is, not that big of a deal, but for the state to go, hey, it is. And so we were very humbled by that. So but I guess I'll start off like on voter registration. I think that's probably a good place to start. Like I said, that was my first job, and we do have a deadline. October 7th is the last day to register for St. Joseph County. It is a very easy process, but sometimes it can get a little bit convoluted. You can do it online through the indianavoters.com, or you can do it through the BMV, or you can print it off online and then mail it in, or come in person. So there's different ways. So we've had some kind of changes within the state laws. If you are a new registered voter, you have to prove your residency. So if you are brand new, and we will check you when your registration, there's an option, there's a button that you check that says prove residency. And they have till election day to prove their residency. So when they go in to vote with their state ID or their driver's license, that then lets us know that we can remove that proof of residency away from their record. So that's been a major thing that they've implemented this year. It's been there, but it wasn't as prominent as it is now, because we're having a lot of people register, and in the past, they have tried to register themselves at like PO boxes or actual commercial buildings. And the state also came out with this other program that it's called like Smart Streets. So we can pull up an address, and the state has already let us know if that is a commercial building or if it's like personal property. So when it comes up a commercial building, we have to call that individual and make every attempt to let them know that we're having a problem processing their application. Because we, again, cannot register somebody at a commercial building because that's not where you live. You have to register where you live. So that's been a process. Another change is that we've had such an influx of registrations at indianavoters.com, but there was an option before, and there still is, to check none as far as having an option in proving who you are for the last four of your social or your driver's license. And that is not acceptable anymore. So what will happen is we will flag it, and then they have to provide us with the last four of their social or their driver's license number or their ID number so that we can get them registered. And we, by law, are only required to make technically 2 attempts, one by phone and then one by mail. But I have all the voter registration deputies, they do it at least 5 to 8 times. I make them put it in that person's record that what they did, like whether they emailed them or called them, left a message. And then I will also have them resend out that form again to them to make sure that it goes to the address. We go above and beyond, just because I feel like sometimes people get in a hurry or they don't quite understand something, and then You know, they see us calling and actually a lot of times they think that we're St. Joe Hospital, and so they won't answer us. And so they'll call us back. And we're like, no, we're just trying to complete your registration. And they're like, oh, okay. Right before the election, all those incomplete registrations have to be settled up. And as Chuck can attest to, I mean, we go on record within the county election board meetings that we make several attempts, and then we try one more time, and then the election board gives us the ability to cancel that person, because if they don't give us the information, there's nothing we can do. But then we give the election board a list of those people so that when those individuals do go to try and vote, and they're voting provisional, because that's how the only way they will be able to vote on election day, that they can compare that information and say, okay, well, you know, unfortunately, this ballot can't be counted because this individual didn't complete their registration, so they weren't registered. So it's a good checks and balance so that the provisional lines up with this person's registration record as well. Trying to think, we have a new process too. It is a BMV declinations. So this is when people go to the BMV and they are doing whatever their business is that day, and they are asked to register to vote, and they decline. And it doesn't mean anything. It just means they were probably already registered and they're going, I don't want to register with you again, or they're just saying no. And so we will get that in a hopper, and it's an online link that we click to, and then we match it up with that person's information, and it's all private. No, we can never share that information, but it does nothing to their existing registration. It does not change it at all. It just means that when they went in there for that business that day, they decided they didn't want to register to vote because they were kind of like, I already am registered, so why do the process all over again? So it notes in their record that they declined that day, but does not change the status of this voter's registration at all. And it became live September 6th. And so all counties, we were anticipating this hopper, and it came in and we had over 1,100 that we had to process. And it was quite interesting. So you had to match the voter with their previous registration, and we had to make sure that it could be that voter at this address, but their old registration said this address. And so we had to just match it, or it would be like we have a lot of twins or, you know, siblings or whatever that are very close in name or close in age. And we have to make sure that we're not attaching their record to this person's record, which is another thing that happens on election day. We have certificates of error because some people will go to vote and they will find out that they have been canceled for some reason, or their registration's not popping up. And sometimes what happens is we have a death hopper as well, and they might accidentally get killed off because there could be 3 Jane Smiths, and we're taking the information from the state and we're matching it to what we have, but they are eligible to vote. So when they go to vote, either early voting or on election day, it will say that they were canceled. That inspector or that absentee clerk will call us and we'll be like, okay, well, they were accidentally killed off, and we rectify it then. And then, or on election day, they vote provisional, and then we attach that paperwork with that provisional so that it's counted on election day. Because we'll have the certificate of error telling them that they are eligible to vote and this is what happened. So there's some safe fails on that as well. Everyone is eligible to vote now. And we tell people that, they're like, do you ever turn anybody away? No. You could be registered in another county, but you're still going to be able to vote here. Now, does that mean it'll count? No. but you're still going to be able to vote. Because if we do the research and we find that you're registered in Marshall County, then, you know, it won't count for St. Joe County. So, but typically if we have somebody that's at a vote center and they're not registered here, they'll call voter registration. They'll look up that individual's record because we can look statewide and see what county they are registered in. All 92 counties, we can see where they're registered. And we can tell them, okay, you're registered in Marshall. You need to go to Marshall County. And the wonderful thing about having vote centers is we don't get the phone calls anymore of I'm in the wrong precinct and it's 5:30 and there's no way we can shoot across town to get to the precinct. So having the 41 vote centers that we have this election cycle is a wonderful thing because you can be anywhere and vote in St. Joseph County, which is such a wonderful thing to have because it just makes it easier for people to vote instead of trying to, you know, vote where you live. But you still have those majority of people that still will vote where they live because that's just what they're used to and that's fine. But, you know, like people on their way to work, they can go anywhere and vote. So it just really opens it up. And one thing that Amy implemented this election cycle is that we are having a third absentee satellite location. So we will have here at the County City Building starting October 8th, and then we will have the Mishawaka County Services Building starting October 8th as well. And then we have the third location, which is Center Township Library, which will start October 21st. And that will be the last 2 weeks of early voting so that it helps takes some of the pressure off of downtown Mishawaka and downtown South Bend and gives people on the south side a more accessible location to vote. There is some changes with some legislation going into people voting for the first time by mail. They are now required there's 2 options they can check on their form. And the first one is where they provide their driver's license or the last 4 of their social. Or option 2, which is where they have to send us a copy of their driver's license or any ID that they have so that we can get them their application processed so they get their ballot sent out. And that has been something new that that legislative wise, they wanted people that were voting by mail to prove that it was this person requesting this application. And so, and we've had, actually a lot of people have done it. So it's been received very well. And it's just the safety for the voter as well. That way we know that we're attaching it to the right person and not sending it to another Jane Smith who lives at such and such. So it just really narrows down the field of who the voter is. Trying to think. We do have, and I think it will be up, or it is up on the St. Joe County website, our absentee hours along with our 41 vote centers. We usually have 42 vote centers, but unfortunately we had a church that was a site in the primary. And because of political reasons, it did not fare well for them, so they opted to not. And since they are a private entity, we cannot make them stay a vote center. So that's why we typically use county funded places like parks, schools, libraries. They can't tell us no. And that's the great thing. Even Warren School that I was told was supposed to be closed, and I think it is closed. It still has to be a vote center and will be a vote center this election. So that's the wonderful thing with the schools and stuff that in libraries and county funded places is they can't tell us no. I know that may be frustrating on their end, but we need to be able to provide all the citizens of St. Joseph County the access to be able to get out and vote and make it easier for them. Legislative changes, we usually get notified as they come around. We'll get emails from the states or the state Indian election division, or we will get it in an update. They have like election news dispatch. They send it out monthly, and it has like all the topics of what to be looking for this month. And so they're telling us like our public test for needs to be done, completed by October 7th. So our public testing of our equipment will be October 4th at 10 a.m. at the warehouse. They also, I mean, they go down to questions that people have. You know, can we modify absentee voting hours, which we're not, by the way. They're going to be the way they've always been. But some counties are a little different than us, so they try to make it kind of broad. We do, this past primary, we had an influx of people dropping off other people's ballots. And it's always been a thing, but it just seemed a little bit more this time. But from the very beginning, we have had anybody who is dropping off anybody's ballot, they have to complete an ABS 19. And that is them telling us whose ballot they're delivering, and then they have to fill out who they are. And then we stick this with the ballot so that it's noted that, you know, a husband, even if it's a husband or a relative, they still have to, everyone has to fill out this form. So if someone came in and dropped off 5 ballots, they have to fill out this form 5 times. So we're making sure that everybody's accountable for that ballot. And that way we can't, someone, well, I sent it with so-and-so, and we're like, well, we didn't get it. And then we would be able to, if they did, we'd be like, yes, John Smith, he filled out the form and we have it with your ballot. And the same thing with an application. So someone comes in to pick up an application for somebody, they have to when they drop it back off, they have to fill out an ABS 17 that lets us know that this person dropped off another person's application for a ballot. So we're able to track that. And we actually had a lot, and I'm kind of anticipating a little bit more in this election. When early voting is happening, those people that are dropping off ballots do not need to stand in line. They will be able to come in, drop off that ballot. They'll have to fill out that form, and then they're out. They don't need to stand in line to drop off a ballot, which I think is great, because that would just be a little chaotic for somebody to stand there if the lines are as long as we're anticipating to just drop off a ballot. I'm trying to think. I'm trying to hit all the key points. I think I have. Is there any questions for me?
Oh, there are questions.
I
Let me
bet.
start. There are questions.
Okay.
Elizabeth Benyon is our question person. Other people ask questions too, but she's our, let's see. Well, here's our very first, this is a comment. Thank you, volunteers. The number of places you visited is incredible. Vote411.org is now published. All but one county level candidate, did I say this before? Responded, and all but one South Bend School Board candidate responded. Question. Would it be possible to bring a Vote 101 workshop and mock election to IU South Bend? It would be great to partner with various student organizations in the honors program to give students an opportunity to learn the process and practice before they vote.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We welcome that. Anytime that someone wants us to do that, we will absolutely do that. But we want to get out and do that. That is what we want to make this, accessible to the public so that they see the whole process and that it doesn't need to be intimidating and that it actually can be fun.
Yeah.
We make it fun with the mock election. I mean, we use characters and stuff, but still, like at the end of the day, Lucy Ricardo could have won Secretary of State. I mean, but it just shows you the process, and especially, younger generations. We try to accommodate to that too, because they're probably like, who's Lucy Ricardo? I know who she is.
Well, and it's scary sometimes. I know when I go into that little box, it's like, oh, what did I say I wanted to do? I can't remember. And so it's kind of scary to me, even now, after all these years. Another question or concern. I am concerned that the proof of residency requirement will disenfranchise college students who live in dorms and use their student ID from a public university to vote. They seldom get bank statements or utility bills because those are included in the fees they pay to housing. What advice do you have?
They will not be denied. If they show us that they are living in the dorm and they have, they have to be registered. So if they're registered at their dorm, they're fine. They just need to, show us some kind of proof that that's where they're staying, but we've not had a problem with any of the college students, shockingly.
And that was I know that was a question I had asked too. If they list their college as their address, they can vote at the school. They don't have to vote absentee or come back home. Is that correct?
No, they don't. Let's say you have a student, at Notre Dame as an example, and they registered. We do register them to their dorm areas.
Okay.
We do that. And then, because all we have to have, like, if they register with us and they give us the last four of their social, then we just register them because that's proving who they are.
Okay.
And so, I would think that they've got some kind of like mail or something that they get, but, yeah, no, we've not had an issue yet.
Okay. And a comment that she has is, thank you for doing the extra outreach to people who think they have registered, but may not have provided all the info needed to complete the form, because this is important.
Absolutely. And I want to track that because I want to be able to tell the public and to tell that person, we've made multiple attempts and I'm sorry. And I know this is extremely frustrating, but let's get you registered for the next election and go from there.
Yeah. Are there already enough poll workers for each vote center?
I know the Democrat list they are full. I know the Republican list is not full. So I guess it just depends on what the party preference is. But we always keep track of, because we have an online portal and then we have voter registration email. And so we will get people saying that they want to work, and then we keep those and print those off. And if the Democratic Party is short, we send those over to them and let them know that these individuals want to work. And then if they say they're full, we keep them. So in case somebody on election day doesn't show up, we call them and let them know, hey, we have an opening here. Can you go here? Same thing for the Republicans as well. So we are getting a lot. And plus there was an email that went out to the county-wide offices here saying, because there was a misconception that they couldn't work on election day because they're a county employee and getting paid for the holiday. Well, that's not true because they thought it was double dipping, and it's not, because they're still getting their holiday pay, and this is through the elections. And so they get paid out of elections. And so they're able to work the election and still get their holiday pay for the county. And the very first hour that it went out 2 days ago, we had like 8 people respond. And so I sent them job descriptions of what it entails and let them know, because the parties are still right now in charge of getting the vote center workers. And it lets them know to contact either Diana Hess or Jackie Horvath and letting them know that they want to work the election. So that's actually been a great thing that's happened too.
Okay, thank you. An observation, election day registration could solve many of the problems regarding people who think they are registered but are not.
The reason we cannot register somebody on election day is because it takes 7 to 10 days to verify this person. They sit in a pending status. And so after 7 to 10 days, the system will then automatically make them active. So until that system is tweaked a little bit, there's no way we could do same day registration.
Okay, clarification request. Do people need to cancel their old registration before registering at their new address after they move, or will your office cancel the old registration for them?
We cannot cancel anybody's registration. We typically tell people to cancel their old registration after they've registered in a new place. Because states will send us letters letting us know that all these people are new registers and that their last registration was in our county. So I get it from Florida, Tennessee, New York, but I can't cancel their registration until I have proof of their new registration, because there was a lawsuit and some people sued the state because their registration was canceled here, even though they were registered and active somewhere else, but we did it without their permission. So if we do have a new address for that person in Texas or Florida, what we've been doing is sending them a cancellation form from their record, and we send it to the election or registration division or the Secretary of State or Indian Election Division and send it to them. And if they can pass it along to that individual, then they do. But we're not even required to do that, but we try to get everything cleaned up so that they're not registered in 2 different places.
You're not busy at all, are you?
Not at all.
What is your opinion on automatic registration? People automatically become registered once they turn 18. If Indiana has this, then the league could spend so much more energy just getting voters to the polls.
I think that would be a great thing. But the misconception is people think when they register to vote that ties them with jury duty. So a lot of people don't do it because they feel like that puts them on a jury list. And it doesn't. When you get your driver's license or your state ID, that's what ties you to the jury list.
Correct.
So,
right.
yes.
Just to be sure, the address on the person's driver's license does not need to match the address on the poll book. Is this correct?
That is correct. And when it doesn't, they will fill out a VRG 412 that tells us their new address and where their old address is. And then they sign it, and the absentee clerk or the inspector signs it, and that goes in the packet of information. And then we get all of that. And then when voter registration does open back up, we complete those VRG 412s that those individuals have completed. And then that's how we change their registration to their new address, so that their address does not need to match their driver's license.
Okay. How are all these changes communicated to the public?
Well, I think a lot of this is on the Secretary of State's website. There's a lot of this information on our county website. When you go to VR and elections department, there's a lot of processes that are stated there. I haven't looked at it in a while because we've been kind of updating some of the stuff because we want it to reflect the election part as well. But most of it, if anything, when there's questions, we answer it on the telephone. Or if there's major changes, then a statewide information blast comes out, and then we do our end. But as far as more public, I don't really know, unless we would hold some kind of press conference or something to that effect.
That'd be good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Question. Vote by mail. What happens if the person includes the last four digits of their social security number when requesting a ballot, but the voter used the driver's license number when registering to vote instead? Does it matter? Or do you have both the social security number and the driver's license number to match these?
So what happens is when that person registers or, asks for the absentee application and they use their social and before they use their driver's license, when that is processed, that application is processed, I will then have something come across my, my screen and it says ID, driver's license correction. And so I will go in and I will click on it and it will tell me that Jane Smith just asked for an absentee application and she used her social. And so then I take that and then I click on it and up comes her previous registration with her absentee and then I tie them together.
There are no secrets anymore, are there?
Yeah.
There have been changes to the travel board. Will these changes make it more difficult for nursing home residents to vote?
No, we actually have more of a team to do the travel board. I know it seems a little frustrating that the individuals have to ask or a family member of the resident has to ask for the travel board. But what was happening, and we've had a couple situations where a activities director was filling out the person's registration and the application. And most of the time it would be incomplete because they didn't have this individual's driver's license or the last four of their social. So we would make phone calls to try to correct it. And I think that was a statewide problem, not just St. Joseph County. And sometimes people would literally tell us, I did not ask for one. And we would see too that this person was already registered at this nursing home. And we don't know why that they were doing it again. And so, yeah, it actually makes it 100% transparent that it is this voter that's asking for it. And I mean, if there's an activities director that wants to go around and find out like how many of those people in that facility want travel board and they request it, that's great, because then we can set it up with the travel board that we send them out there and they're gonna, knock out 10 residents that day to be able to vote. So we don't want to exclude like the activities director, but if there was more of a collaborative effort of like, hey, these individuals want it, and then they make that recommendation or they call us and let us know, or they go online and request a travel board, which they can do that as well. Then we can, make it an easier process for those residents too, so they're not sitting around and getting frustrated and waiting on us. So that would be my suggestion.
IUSB would love to be a polling place and a vote center.
We would love it.
There you go. And another question is, how does the place become a vote center or a polling place?
They just told us, so we will be calling them in 2026 and saying, will you be a vote center?
Is there anything specific they have to do to become a vote center?
No, I mean, they have to be ADA compliant. And it needs to be a room that's not deep within the college, so that there's like this kind of, going around. If it's a room that's easy accessible and to get the people in and out on that day to vote. But other than that, if they tell us, then we send out our lead machine tech and he goes out and does a diagram and checks the room and makes sure that we can, whatever room it is, how many machines can we set up in there? How many workers would we need? And then we come back and then we put our plan together and then, and that's it. That's it.
Okay. Please review the ABS 17 information once more.
The ABS 17 is when someone is picking up dropping off a application for a ballot. So if you have a neighbor that's dropping off your application for a ballot, they have to fill out the ABS 17 so that we can attach it with the application. So that we know that John Smith brought in Sarah Smith's application, and so that it's tied together.
Okay. Now, when the league does it, we don't fill out something. We just hand them over to you.
What, the absentee?
Oh, those are just for absentees?
That's just absentee.
Okay,
That's the
that's for
application.
absentees,
Mhm.
not for just any
Mhm.
registration.
Yeah.
Like if somebody so if I register my neighbor to vote, I can take that form and just hand it to you. I don't have to fill out anything, correct? That's just for absentee ballots for voting.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Okay. Next, how successful has Hoosier Hall Pass been so far in recruiting high school students as poll workers? And can we help more in this if needed?
Actually, in the primary, we had probably about 6 or 7, which is the most we've ever had. I think what's very helpful is the kids get out of school and it's not counted against them. But here locally for St. Joseph County, we've had all the schools be compliant, and they've actually not been open on election day. So that's been a great thing too. So that was an issue with schools, is there, kids are in school and they're in session and we have all these people that are coming through. But it's been very successful. And actually this morning, the clerks down in Marshall County registered, or they actually held a mock election in Bremen High School. And I don't have it in front of me, but they had 2 people that are residents of St. Joseph County and they want to be vote center workers. And so they filled out the Hoosier Hall Pass and they emailed it to me. And so I'm passing it on. So it was great that 2 students are very interested in the process and wanting to do it. And plus they do get a certificate letting them know from the Secretary of State that they completed this. So it's
Wonderful.
kind of neat.
Okay, great news on county workers being poll workers. Follow-up question, if somebody is new to St. Joe County and registers here, are they still able to vote here even if they have a registration in another state that was not canceled?
Well, I wouldn't know if they have a registration active in another state because I can only check the state of Indiana. I can check all 92 counties. I can't check any state. So if they're new here and they register here, they are eligible to vote.
Okay.
Unfortunately, on that voter, if they vote here and then vote in the other state, that's on them.
Oops, that's
Yeah.
question. Is it okay for voter registration volunteers in Indiana to that I had asked this question earlier, highlight certain boxes on the voter registration form? And also, is it okay to draw a line through the boxes that are not needed, such as the party or the race boxes in the federal form?
Yes and yes.
Okay, yeah, that was one of my questions I asked before everybody got here. Okay, so an activity director can, I don't know if this is a statement so an activity director can request travel board.
They cannot. They can get their residents together that are wanting travel board and getting them together, and then that voter or a family member can request it. And then maybe get a collaborative group together. And now they can request it online and I'm not gonna know who did it. And I know I shouldn't say that, but it is what it is. So if there's like 10 people that have requested from, St. Paul's, then we will get a travel board together and they will go to St. Paul's. But it's typically, the new law is that it's got to come from the voter or a member of that voter's family.
Okay, this is my last question here, unless somebody has some more they want to really quickly type in. Oops, there's some more. Can groups like the League mail registration forms to the voter registration / clerk's office if they register people outside their own county and can't get to every site person to drop off the forms? So if so, what information do they need to include in the envelope with the registration form?
So, well, my suggestion would be if you're collecting from other counties, then I would send them to the Indiana Election Division. And when they get them, they timestamp them and then they send them to us. And even if they come in after the 8th, the fact that they were timestamped down at the Indiana Election Division, we still process those because they were in on time.
Okay. And she has one more question about uncanceled registrations. If someone is new to St. Joe County and registers here, are they still able to vote here, even if they have a registration in another county that was not canceled? I think that was answered kind of, but.
We typically, what happens, especially within the state of Indiana, we have transfers. So if somebody's registering in Elkhart or they're registering here and we're processing, then an electronic file goes, it's a transfer file, and then we have to transfer that information to that new county. So within the state of Indiana, we have a checks and balances. So we can send this, it automatically sends a transfer notice to the other county to transfer all their vote history to us. So we get that person's registration along with their vote history, no matter what county they were in.
Okay. And I have a question that isn't in there, and I had asked you earlier, but a lot of these folks here are folks that have been registering voters, and we're going into 4 more high schools, 4 more of those coming up. A lot of kids don't have driver's license, and they don't remember their social. And so they leave those blank. But you will contact those people to verify one or the other so that they can be registered to vote. Is that correct?
That is correct. And we encourage people when they're registering other people with the registrations to give us like an email or a phone number. And sometimes we don't have phone numbers. So even though they are incomplete when we get them, because they are missing that information to completely register them, we will send a letter to that address, letting them know that they need to provide us with this information and the number to call to let us know at voter registration. And we'll make several attempts because we've made, so just the VRG 412s were from the primary, and that was from people whose address didn't match their driver's license. And we have about 30 of those that are still incomplete. And we are still sending letters and still making phone calls to those individuals. So we work through it for months.
Okay, thank you. Are you expecting any violence or intimidation on election day, and how are you prepared to prevent violence?
I don't want to say that we're anticipating it. Do we have a safety plan? Yes. We have met with Department of Homeland Security. We have met with our EMA guys, and we do have some backup situations to work through. I don't want to divulge what they are just because then but we have went and done our due diligence on, just like even like in a situation where, let's say a school doesn't have power. We have now put on the form, do you have a backup generator? And then, so stuff like that, so that we're making sure that this vote center has the ability to run if electricity is cut off.
Okay.
I'm praying there's no violence.
Yeah, as we all are. And this is the last question, and we're almost out of time anyway, so this will be our last question. How are you preparing to answer questions or allegations of voter fraud in St. Joe County?
Well, it's very hard to do voter fraud because like I was explaining in some of the processes, we verify who you are by your social security or your driver's license. And if we can't get that information from you, those are the people that get canceled before the election. You can't, I know there's that myth of what if you get all these ballots dropped off? It doesn't work like that. Like I said, you have to fill out a form if you're dropping off someone's ballot. And there is a barcode that goes out to each voter when we send out their application, and then we send the ballot. There's a barcode on that ballot. And then when that ballot comes back to us, we take our scanner and we scan it into the system, and it attaches to that individual's record. So, and then that's when we make signature comparisons. We look up the history of this person. Is this them? There's no chance for voter fraud like that. No.
Pam,
Okay.
may I just say one thing, please? This is
Yeah.
Beth. This has been so fabulous. Pam, together with a couple of other of our league members, and I have been doing all the voter registration stuff. And this week leading up to today, we had the opportunity to work at the Center Branch, Center Township Branch Library. And we were able to tell many of the people who were streaming in about their local library being a voting center this year as of October 21st for in-person absentee, and they were thrilled.
Great. That's wonderful. That is
Thank you.
wonderful.
Well, I want to thank everybody who came today. I want to thank everybody who had wonderful questions to ask. And Trisha, I want to thank you so much. We thank you for your time. I mean, I know you have nothing else to do but to sit now with us. But we thank you so much for this information. It's new to us. Some of it's new to us, and some of it validates what some of us already know. So it's wonderful to have you here, and thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Wait a minute. I got one more thing, and there's also a bunch of thank yous here in the chat, but here's one. As Pam mentioned at the start, click the red bar at the top of South Bend, lwvsouthbend.org for lots of election information, including the links, extremely helpful, St. Joe County voter registration and election information. Thank you, Trisha, and everyone in voter registration.
Thank you.
It's going to be a great month.
It is.
Or two, if we can get it all done. Thank you all, and have a wonderful day. It's beautiful outside.
Thanks.
Thanks.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye, everybody.